speaking to those who are just living in their comfortable lives and not wanting to go any deeper, and they would rather just stay on the surface. Like, that's not who I'm speaking to right now. Hey everyone, I wanted to talk about a topic that I feel comes up a lot when it comes to healing conversations with friends or professional colleagues or what have you. And this is also something that comes up a lot in the context of human design, because one of the types is literally called a manifester. And so, as you may have guessed based on that, today's conversation is going to be on the idea of manifesting. And from my personal experience and opinion and understanding, what I believe manifesting to be, and why I think a lot of people get really confused about what manifesting is, again, in my opinion and in my experience, and how it can be sometimes defeating or cause us to feel like we're failing because things are not just flowing into our lives, like the money and the jobs and the perfect relationships and all of the above. And so I wanted to give some examples as well as some alternative definitions that you may or may not have heard this perspective on before. I'm really just going off of my own understanding, my own intuition, and I pre-wrote myself a few notes just so that I try to stay on track. Some definitions that I found online, I think the most relevant ones are going to be to create, to take form, to appear. Like, that is what I googled to be the definition of manifest. There's a lot of confusing and conflicting information that everyone so happens to be talking about. It's unfortunately, one of those buzzwords that people use a lot without really always understanding the nuances to it. And then it just becomes a lead generator. It becomes a tool to bring in business without the understanding that manifesting conceptually may work the same, but that doesn't mean that any of the actions or the things behind the manifestation are the same. So let me explain. Part of this is going to be from the understanding of my personal opinions and my own belief systems. Another part of this is going to be comparing of the more spiritual understanding of things versus the human experience and the physical world that we live in. I don't know if you've seen those videos or those games or pranks or whatever you want to call it. It depends on the context. Where you put your hand into a hole and the person is meant to kind of guess what's on the other side. And so it can be something that is just like, I don't know, a cup of grapes or like Jello, and your mind just imagines like the worst case scenario that you're like feeling something really disgusting. Or on the other hand, you can have something where they tell you or they preempt you of like what's in there. So they might say like brains or something. And then because you're feeling something that's like gushy, and like most of us probably have never felt what brains feel like in our hands, so you're kind of just like meant to think of it being brains, even if it's just like Jello or some kind of squishy toy for a dog or something. It's like this idea that our experiences into adulthood or however we are experiencing life, this can shape how we perceive things. And a second example would be to imagine that you're wearing a blindfold and maybe you're going to walk into a haunted house. And it may be very different if you're not seeing all of the things that are happening there. And the same thing can probably go for if you're watching something visual like a show or something, and then you don't have the sound, because a lot of times with like movies and TV shows, it's actually the sound for those of us who are able to hear the sounds can evoke the emotions within us. So you can have the same clip and it'll either be really scary, or it can be like loving, or it can be neutral. And so a lot of the things around us in our environments can shape our perception. So I say all of that to try to describe conceptually that same idea and relating it to manifesting. I came up with two things that we must understand to start this conversation. And I actually just thought of a third one. This is a lot more than just one thing to understand, but I mentioned this earlier, that a lot of this is also based on our belief systems and our understandings of the world. So of the two things to understand with manifesting, number one is to understand what your belief systems are. So for me, I believe the universe is infinite. And number two, it's understanding that our brains and being human equals limited. So we have something that is infinite and we have something that is limited. So if we were to think back on a lot of our life experiences when we were growing up, how many situations can you think of where you really, really wanted something and then you got it and it turned out to not be what you actually wanted? You were so set on something and then it ended up not working out, but what you ended up getting was even better. The human brain is so limited, and a lot of times we have to live life and we have to decondition throughout our living of life, and we have to have certain experiences to have a more robust understanding of life. And so when we think about what we believe is possible, that is going to be shaped by the world around us. Are we wearing a blindfold or not? What were the circumstances that we grew up in? What were the people around us saying? What does society say? And what is that little fear indicator that is kind of just naturally ingrained in all of us for self-preservation and protection? If the universe is infinite and our brains and our human minds are very limited, so if you were to believe those two things to be true, what would lead you then to believe that you would be able to understand or envision or even think up in your wildest dreams what is possible when the universe is infinite? And so this is kind of one of the things that I feel has been really key to my personal journey, and understanding what patience means, what timing means, understanding the healing journey, accepting where I'm at, and being able to look at past experiences as learning experiences, not, successes and failures, not good or bad, although we can probably say that those things apply. But in the context of manifesting, we don't even know if we are on the precipice of something great and amazing and beautiful and wonderful beyond all imagination, right? And I can tell you, I have so many situations where I can think of where I thought all I have to do is stay in a W-2 9-to-5 job, and if I just stick with it, then within 15-20 years I'll be able to double my income from $35,000 to $70,000, and I'll be so comfortable. Right? And so that was my 20-something-year-old mind before I got into finance and personal finance. Literally my wildest dreams were to work a 9-to-5 job and stick with it for 20 years so that I could increase my income by a couple of percent every year for 20 years and make it to an amazing 70 or 80,000 and be living the life. And let me tell you, when you really can think back on some of those situations, you really can realize how limited our minds really are. And of course, based on my experience as a 20-something-year-old, making practically minimum wage. Back then, I didn't have, all of the bills and all of the things that I have to pay for now, and that $30,000 really doesn't get you that far, even if this was several years ago. And so if I kind of keep and hold on to that, I've liked to use it as kind of an anchor to remind me of you do not even know what's possible. So just keep doing what feels authentic to you, what feels right to you, what you feel called to do, what helps make you feel good, what heals you, what releases stuck emotions, whatever it is, that is what you do. And eventually you get to the things that, you have no idea that it's coming. And so it's redefining, what does success even mean? What does manifesting mean? What does is my belief system and how limited is my mind actually when I can open myself up to the infinite possibilities of the universe. And that is what I believe that true manifestation is. So I think where a lot of people get it wrong is they see somebody who kind of positions themselves as some kind of guru because that's what can reel people in, that's what can build a strong loyalty, and then you have income coming in, for however long that person relies on you. A lot of this is like really good for business, it's good for marketing, it's good for branding, but at the end of the day, these things are not a cookie cutter solution. It's not a one size fits all. And just because something works for somebody doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. It may not be a part of their life path. It may not actually be the thing that's going to lead them to what they're actually wanting. And because our minds are so limited and we don't know the bigger picture, it can be really hard to think, oh, I really want that job because it pays so well. But on the other hand, if you were to be able to fast forward into that situation and realize that you were trading those dollars for completely losing your humanity and your sense of self as a human being, is that really worth it? Whereas if you were to go down another path and everybody else told you that it didn't make any sense, but you felt so called to do it either way, and then you did it, and all of a sudden, like, you're maybe an artist or a musician and you were just doing something for fun and you happen to be in the right place at the right time, and you end up meeting this person that gives you an amazing opportunity and you make well beyond what you were going to make in that job that would have sucked the life out of you, right? Like, these are the things that do happen every day, but we also have to be open to it, and we have to be able to allow ourselves sometimes to go beyond that fear. And again, there's so much more nuance to this, and it's very simple, and it's also very complex. And I don't want to make you also think that what I'm trying to say is like just impulsively move towards anything that feels like your next big break and do it. Like, no, there is a process to healing, to understanding what you want outside of other people. That's the deconditioning process. We have healing to do. We have processing of our past experiences, putting it into the context of our situations in our lives, and being able to really sit with the discomfort of not knowing what's going to happen next. And sometimes the thing is going to be a challenge. And we so frequently equate manifestation with something that's just inherently positive, but that is not always the case. A lot of times we are taught to think in black or white thinking because it serves the few. But when we think of things as good or bad, we really rob ourselves of the opportunity for growth when growth is knocking on our door. We lose the opportunity to understand something from a different perspective, to learn and have depth because of an experience. And again, I'm not saying that you have to have challenges in order to have something great, but it does allow for much greater depth. And yes, you can be happy. However, there are some of us that feel it so deeply that nothing on the surface will ever be satisfying enough, and it just is not going to do. And so this is who I'm speaking to. I'm not speaking to those who are just living in their comfortable lives and not wanting to go any deeper, and they would rather just stay on the surface. Like, that's not who I'm speaking to right now. I'm speaking to those of you who feel called to this message, who feel like this resonates so strongly with your soul that you know that you are here for greater, and that there is a part of you that wants something deeper than what you have at the surface level. And that is where the deep work comes in. That's where the healing comes in. And that's where oftentimes what our greatest gifts are actually on the other side of some challenging moments that we are able to work through, and then pat ourselves on the back and congratulate ourselves that we were able to make it out on the other side, and we come out with clarity and understanding, and we start to understand a new version of what abundance really is, an abundance of love for ourselves, an abundance of celebration for ourselves and not giving up, a recognition of trusting in our intuition and going for it and doing it despite all of the naysayers and all of the things in our logic brain that was telling us not to do it. It is for those who are able to follow your heart above the logic of what the 3D world wants you to believe, and that's who I am speaking with today. And so bringing it back to manifestation, manifesting does not just mean goodness. Manifesting does not just mean, ease and flow and without challenge and without difficulty and without having to try. Manifesting could mean that everything that you ever wanted could be on the other side of a breakdown that you are uncontrollably crying for 10 minutes because something broke open in you, and now you see life from a whole different perspective. So that was a lot to process, and I kind of needed to cut that off because it was just coming out too much, and I think that it would get really, really confusing. But in the end, step number 1, I encourage you to first sit with, what is your belief system in this world? Do you believe in a universe? Do you believe in guides? Do you believe in ancestors? What is your understanding of fate versus free will? What is your belief system when it comes to having a predestined path or certain milestones that were already predestined? What is your belief system in past lives and soul connections with people that feel so familiar to you? These are the type of things that you need to figure out first before you can even begin the conversation of manifesting from a conscious space. And I say conscious space because there are so many people who don't believe in spirituality. There are so many people who don't understand how any of this works, and they are manifesting things every single day. So you do not have to fully understand all of this in order to manifest. And sometimes ignorance can be bliss because you don't overthink things and you just allow the things to happen, or you just think that life is trying to tear you down, but eventually you see the light in things and you understand what the lesson was. And so again, start the conversation with yourself. Start thinking about what your beliefs are, and start actually putting words to these things for yourself, rather than just regurgitating something that you've heard and that you've memorized in order to sound smart and feel respected within a group. Because I can tell you, people memorize quotes because they think that it just gives you so much respect and that you have intelligence. I don't think I've memorized a single quote. I have before when I thought I needed to sound smart, but I can tell you I'm a very deep and critical thinker. I don't find myself to be dumb in any way, but I cannot recite to you a single quote right now. So again, discover who you are outside of all the noise. Be you, make sense of it for yourself, and then from there, no one is going to be able to manipulate you on these things because you'll have a basic understanding of what your truths are. Then you can take what you will from what other people share, and you're going to be coming from a place of empowerment and self-understanding. So again, that was a lot. Sorry these always go on for so long, but I know some of you do appreciate it, so I'll continue to keep doing it, and take care.